When thinking about a theme for the project called Cowboys in Coney Island, we were tasked with creating our own island. During ideation, having recognized the important role of chicken shops within the community, we had the idea of using Chicken Shop as a social center of our island. We found that the etiquette in South London Chicken Shop was an interesting basis to imagine society without values and rules. For example, the idea of waiting in line could draw a value of respect. Through this method of thinking, we began to draw comparisons with current systems and how they could improve through the study of chicken shop culture. Two very important values have been community and hospitality. These key terms became the foundation of our collective practice, which we try to emphasize through the project. On our island, chicken is the end of every event. Our rituals revolve around ends and the end. We come to these spaces at the end of school, at the end of a night out. Fridays are the new Sundays, and Sundays are the new Fridays. The island is a collection of codependent and globalized communities working together under a union named the United Ends. In a moment of darkness, search for the red lighthouse. You'll be at home when reaching. In response, we designed a fictional character that lived in the United Ends. In our final video, the viewer can experience this world through the televised streaming of the area. We developed programs such as weather forecasting, children's programs, soap operas, history programs, and so on. One of the advertisements on the television demonstrates how this island had a solution for a very real problem, solving the high demand of our small homeland. This hentopia consisted of the whole of Croydon being closed off and made into a free-range farm where the chicken can roam free within the safe walls of the area and enjoy life before meeting their destiny. When envisioning how to transfer this idea into a visual outcome, we created a guilt-free ad that would stream on public television as propaganda, where citizens can visit and learn about their humanely sourced food, leaving them with a clean conscience, critiquing in satirical outcome the idea of guilt-free anything. Later, I expanded this topic on my essay, KFC, Killing for Chicken, where through a cruel eye, I explored the overconsumption of poultry chicken in the UK. Jules, what makes you feel nostalgic?
Photo albums. Artificial grapes.
Ler coisas antigas.
The Avril Lavigne Complicated album.
A música dos anos 80, Brasil.
Old teddy bears.
Pensar na minha mãe. Video games.
A ver SIC, desenhos animados.
Na casa de banho.
This like orange squash.
A chuva.
E saudades suas também.
I worry constantly about forgetting. I take pictures and write down things people say, save notes, press flowers, and spend hours looking at family pictures, surrounding myself with nostalgic objects. Nostalgia is the closest thing that I have to time travel. It gives us an opportunity to experience moments of our life while completely detaching ourselves from our normal anxieties and uncertainties. So, when Sainsbury's filled up their gashapon machine with my favorite childhood characters, something in me screamed to reach out. The whole ritual from inserting the coin till the noise of making it spin and fall reminded me of the joys of childhood. I wanted to mimic this experience with my own memories, to emphasize feeling with personalized objects of nostalgia. I speculated and designed a company called Timing. The company creates the perfect experience of nostalgia, offering the joy of randomization and storage services for your gashapon time capsules, until you might be ready to reopen your memories. The secret of surprise is forgetting. Only the act of opening something sealed for so long makes the object inside so much more special. The purchase of this service is through the website, where you can choose how long and how many capsules to store your memories. After you purchase and fill up the kit, it should be sent back to store until the time seal is expired. When the seal expires, you are sent cardboard pieces to put the gashapon machine together with the help of a manual. This way, the mechanism will create the ritual of nostalgia before opening your capsules. This machine is designed to trigger your nostalgia from the moment you see it. The lo-fi, crude cardboard structure mimics the DIY aesthetic from handmade crafts we made when we were children. Its purpose is to bring emotion, from the ritual of filling the capsules to the fun of building it, to the randomization of the spin and the pop of when it opens, only to find something inside, almost forgotten, triggering strong emotions of the past. When revisiting this project, I decided to develop the research and context of the company, establishing what kind of objects, how and why, store inside time egg capsules, from padding of the object inside the egg, protecting it from moving around, a handbook to help with ideas of what to place inside the time capsule, a perishability list, and stickers to seal them. Therefore, after research on what makes people nostalgic, I created a handbook that guides the user on what nostalgic objects can be stored inside the capsules. On the guide, there are folding techniques that can be used for letters, tips on how to store your voice and music, together with the pieces of writing that explain characteristics about nostalgia-inducing objects. The size constraint makes you push the boundaries of what can come out. There are options of using small glass vials to store liquids, smells, or smaller goods, objects that can inflate, photography mediums, and so on. The time capsule element to this comes together with a list of perishable goods and their time restraint against the blessing of time. By allowing individuals to remember personally meaningful and rewarding experiences they share with others, nostalgia can boost psychological well-being. Studies have shown inducing nostalgia in people can help increase their feelings of self-esteem and social belonging, encourage psychological growth, and even make them act more charitable. Today, it seems that nostalgia is everywhere, partially because advertisers have discovered how powerful it is as a marketing technique against the longing user. It's tempting to think of this as a sign of us being stuck in the past. But that's not really how nostalgia works. Instead, nostalgia helps us remember that our lives can have meaning and value, helping us find the confidence and motivation, escaping and facing the challenges of the future.
Growing fish down there that you could populate and have, grow salmon down there and for food, turning them into this resource. Because they got all the nutrients coming through. But then they would all be high on cocaine.
Bathrooms are glossy, frictionless places that allow organic matter to slip down holes and tubes and into the underground, removing them from the conversation. We looked at the health of the sewers, studying it as an invisible body that can reflect the health of the public. With COVID, our lives are at risk, with invisible agents running inside our body. Suddenly, invisible infrastructures that have a lot to do with our health have become important to us. Sewers are designed to be inaccessible and far from view, a vast and complex network that has shaped our rituals, rules, and reality in an invisible way which we don't acknowledge. However, while revisiting this project, we talked with a third year doing their project on overflow of the River Thames. They have found that after heavy rainfall, sewers overflow, providing a great water spectacle, finally making its presence evident, bleeding into the surface with a great splurge and stink, ending up in our rivers. We wanted to question how these chemically infested waters affect ecosystems, focusing on fish, how they could look, and most importantly, what communal story could it tell us about ourselves? From our research, we realized that there is a grave under-analysis of our waters. Therefore, to address this scarcity, we designed a kit, which includes different chemical sensors and instructions, so the user can be directly responsible for their local data. Inputting their results into BetaFish application, you are confronted by the creature that is fed the collected community data. It will mutate and adapt to determine its shape and structure based on the information it receives. Human behavior becomes the variable. This data is rich in information that allows us to gain knowledge about the current state of our waters and communities. However, there are ethical issues orbiting this data. Who does it belong to? And is it wrong to measure waste from individuals without their consent? As a potential solution, we thought about letting the communities take charge of the collection of their own data, rather than having third parties holding this information. In response, we speculated a kit with an Arduino sensor with a live feed of an ever-changing fish responding to the components of our water. But, when revisiting this project, We knew we wanted it to be driven by citizen science, meaning that people are directly responsible for the collection, storage, usage, and upload of their local data. We were confronted with the fact that this would be too complex and expensive to create. In consequence, to design this kit a reality, we decided to focus on the chemical phosphorus. The chemical data is collected through the phosphorus sensors and pH scales provided in the kit, which you take to the local river for measurements and documentations, making a cheaper, easier, and accessible way to measure our waters. It is a collection of data that allows us to reflect on the health of the public by looking at the health of the fish. For example, if your water contains high levels of phosphorus, the app shows a fish with bigger bones, as it helps to build them. The final kit is a collective of a test tube, a manifesto which includes who we are and our project narrative, to go with the phosphate pH test instructions. We hope that by collecting enough data, by conducting our own domestic science experiments for the benefit of others, we will one day build an understanding of the country as a whole. Meanwhile, we contacted writers and are continuing to develop our words by collaborating with them, and are going to collaborate and help the third-year student on their project about the overflow of the river Thames.
After 3, right, are we ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Silencing. Right.
Complete.
1, 2, 3.
One can be seen as the product of their environment, that we're only as good as the company we keep, or rather the peers we collaborate with. Entering into this course, we were told how studio culture will be the base of our design education, our work and personal practice, and it turned out to be exactly that, practice. The studios are the place to improve, try, fail, and try again. We practice coming in every day, creating bonds, nurturing an environment of creativity, and supporting each other. A space is our culture and so much more. It seems only fair then to spotlight the environment that has been responsible for the thoughts, conversations, and creations that have occupied my time as a designer. The happenings that have further molded my personal practice and interactions with the work and world. Our studio became the only physical interface we had this year due to the COVID situation. It transformed into a refuge for social time, work efforts, and general escapes from the monotony of our overly familiar living spaces. No studio, no problem. Printouts are just like the real thing. No pub, no problem. As soon as the clock strikes 7 p.m., people disappeared, only to return with bag full of brain fuel, the booze of thought. No club, no problem. Dance from a distance. So, what is design? Last year, I would have explained that it's a skill, an act of making, of taking an idea and making it a reality, but I've spent long enough in B.A.Design to be indoctrinated into broader understanding, an understanding that design is more than a tool, more than a linear process. Design is the nurture of connectivity, is by people, for people. We come together to bring others together. Design is the after-hour chats over a pint. It is starting side projects together just before a deadline. It is agreeing to be a guinea pig in anyone's work. Design is baking cookies, cider bottle symphonies, and sword fights. It is many things and many more added every day. The only way to keep track is to stop for a minute in the chaos of creativity and speculation and ask again, in this moment, what is design?
What is this called?
This project was a world-building exercise exploring what a free and fair society could look like using chicken shop ideologies. I found that as a designer, we were inevitably forced into the role of a politician, whether we wanted it or not. I still have the temptation to recluse myself from the conversation and worry to accidentally ridicule cultures that aren't mine. I used to, before this year, produce only work I could fully understand and be part of. But as a designer, through the second year, I learned to design for others in order to help a community bigger than myself. Considering the responsibilities and power of the designer in the relationship with the world. On 2.2, we were tasked with escaping, but escaping in the COVID-19 world was quite impossible. I chose nostalgia because it was what I was feeling at the time. I could not see my family or friends, and I longed to be happy, energized self that I once were. When I picked up this project again, I noticed how unmotivated I was at the time and turned it around into my favorite project of the year, simply by looking at its functionality and beyond as a discourse on society, into the motion of the user at a larger scale. Why would someone need this? Elaborating and questioning what use might mean in everyday practice. It developed into a solid company that could one day exist simply by sitting down and thinking. 2.4 was the first live brief I've worked on. I learned to understand working in a professional context and creating our own studio environment as a group. I found it hard working remotely. We easily went off in tangents and would spend hours on Zoom going around in circles. By the end of the project, we relied on digital visualization and concepts, which gave us a strong visual language, producing final design work at a greater level and developing design outcomes for an industrial and professional context. Our group chat became a place for studio culture, where we shared references, musing ideas, reflections, and most importantly, jokes. We developed our presentation skills to a professional level. The project needed to work through a screen and to be clear and engaging. Writing became hugely important to our practice. We developed a narrative style, allowing us to feature the storytelling aspect of our project. What does this mean for me as an individual practitioner? This year was about placing the designer in the world, society, and culture. We were thrown into this year with the feeling of unknown, but even in the darkest time of my life, I managed to grow tremendously. 2020 and 2021 were the years I confronted my biggest fear of writing. It was the year I learned to be a more complete designer, practicing what I thought to be my weakest points as a physical practitioner. I developed the ability to learn how to place myself in the professional world, to present my work clearly, to not be afraid of concepts, and to face the white page and write about who I am and what I love to do. I used to think of myself as an artist. I didn't know how to pair my work with words, and I say now that I am a designer and I am a more complete designer for this horrible year. Who I thought I was in year one does not exist anymore. I am not the same. I have evolved into a more introspective, communicative, and independent woman practitioner, and will sure be taking my ability to flourish from year 2 into my final year at Goldsmiths.